Hi there and welcome to Lorena's Labyrinth. My name's Anna Pirelli. The comments that you see here are my views, beliefs, opinions, and sometimes they are not even my fully formed views, beliefs, and opinions. However, they are my understandings. Please do retain an open mind and reflect on any of the content and your comfort levels. If your views differ, please feel free to leave a comment. Also remember, it is possible to disagree in respectful ways. My way is not necessarily your way and vice versa. You might also find that some of the content on this playlist in regard to spiritual or universal laws, it resonates with you, meaning it feels right to you, while other laws may not feel right or they may not feel comfortable. If this is the case, the information is either not right for you or it is not right for you right now, and it might never be right for you at any given time. It really doesn't matter. As an earthy and practical person, I can put my hand up with all honesty and say that I have at different times had the same feelings about some of the content in here. And with some of them, I still have a level of skepticism within my viewpoints, but I choose to retain an open mind about the things that I don't fully understand for a few reasons. Firstly, because I believe it would be supreme arrogance to think that we all know all of the answers while we have a body. And because what is right for one of us is not necessarily right or suitable for all of us, and I choose to respect the differences. Please do leave your opinions, beliefs. Feel free to argue the points in a respectful way with any of the content on the slides and even my interpretations. And if you feel that you can add clarity around some of the content, we would all love to see it. Thank you. For now, though, let's explore the laws.
All creation is governed by law. The principles that operate in the outer universe, discoverable by scientists, are called natural laws. But there are subtler laws that rule the hidden spiritual planes and the inner realm of consciousness. Contained within these laws, or conditions, is the true nature of matter. Knowledge of these laws has an effect upon the mental urges. Mind is the builder. Stay in full mindfulness of the application of universal law as related to self and to others, and know that in love all life is given, in love all things move. In giving one attains, in giving one acquires. In giving, love becomes the fulfillment of desire, guided and directed in the ways that bring the more perfect knowledge of self as related to the universal, all-powerful, all-guiding, all divine influence in life. Love is life. When we go back, merge with the God source, in some infinitesimal but profound way, we expand the mind of God. Our higher self always points the best and most perfect way, and it is ours to listen and choose or reject what we hear. It does not blame, but patiently tries again to show the perfect way, the loving way. All of creation pushes forth. We are ever becoming. Identity ever remains. Universal law number 43. The law of intuition. We can only get in touch with our own source of intuition and wisdom when we no longer depend upon others' opinions for our sense of identity or worth. Do we value and trust our own intuition? Or do we value and transfer authority to the opinions of others over our own inner feelings? Our intuition becomes more profound when we claim our own sacred identity.
So once again, this is one of these laws that I'm either not sure that I agree with the way it's written or whether I agree with it in its entirety. Okay, so let's unpack this a bit. We can only get in touch with our own source of intuition and wisdom when we are no longer dependent on other people's opinions for our sense of identity or worth. I'm not sure that I agree with that. Okay, that's because at the end of the day, I know certainly that one of my life paths has been, and I'm sure this is the same for many of us, that we do undervalue ourselves quite a lot, and I think it's the nature of human beings to want to be approved of and valued by the people that are around us. It doesn't always happen that way. So many of us, and I include many psychics, energy workers, healers, and all of that are out there today, I would say that they probably still struggle with that, because I think this business of wanting the approval of others, or hoping to be loved and cared for by people and appreciated, is part of being human. So if we were to turn around and say, well, you can only get in touch with it when you've overcome these human behaviours, I think then we probably would say, well, there's maybe 1 or 2% of people that are like that, and how mentally well are they anyway? Are they psychopaths, you know? So from that perspective, I don't agree with it. But then on the other hand, because I didn't step automatically into my psychic and spirit communication gifts, they were a gradual evolution. And I recalled, I've been reflecting on this and how I might approach this. So it involves a yarn, once again bringing back to my personal experience and how I reach my conclusions. It reminded me of a story where I learned to really rely on my intuition before I was psychically visual, if you like, and at a time when I was still doubting the communications that I received from my guides at different times from a practical and earthly perspective. So how I learned to trust my intuition was absolutely brilliant, and it stayed with me as a living example of what it must be like for our guides working with us on the earth plane. And what happened was, I'll tell you the story, of course. I was having a really rough day many, many years ago. I had 3 children that were just at each other's throats because it was winter. And of course, when you're Australian and you've spent most of your life living in warm climates, we'd relocated to one of the southern parts. And it was a particularly harsh winter. There was wind and rain and hail, and the clouds were in the sky. It was all grey, and it was just horrendous for us, okay? And then there was a break in the rain, and there was a bit of a blue sky, and I thought, I've got to go to the forest, right? There was this really magical forest that I used to go to down there, and I'd been out there a number of times. And this particular day I thought, I've got to go to the forest. I'm just going to go insane. I've got to have a little bit of space. There was this amazing tree that I used to go and sit in. It was quite high. You could climb up and sit in the branch, and it had so this magical quality of the forest was you're actually in this really old forest, and when you would sit in this tree, you could look out because there was a cliff drop behind the forest, and you could sit up and look out over the horizon of oceans and that. And it was just magnificent. And I thought, I've got to go there. I've got to replenish my soul. I've got to look at the water and, in between the rain before it starts all this horrible weather again. And as I was heading out the door, my daughter, who was 15 at the time, well, in fact, I asked all the children if they wanted to come with me, but 2 were like they didn't want to because it was a horrible day. The third one, the eldest one, said, no, I want to come too. So I agreed that I would bring takeaway home for the children, the 2 that stayed behind, and me and my eldest daughter, we went out to the forest. And when we got to the forest, my daughter did the race. It was race on for the tree, and I let her win, as you do. So she was sitting there parked up in the tree, and I sort of thought to myself, it's too cold. I sat outside in the forest for a little while, and then I thought, I'll sit in the car. What I'd done was I had forgotten to turn the headlights off, and because it was winter, it got dark very quickly. And when we were going to go and I tried to turn the car engine on, obviously it didn't start. I'd drained the battery, and my daughter was, you can imagine, absolutely spitting chips, as we say, because this meant that we had quite a long walk home. It was about, I think, 7 or 8k down a dirt road walking, and then to get to the main bitumen road so that we could try and thumb a ride home. Sounds great, but yep, that's what we were aiming to do, and that's in fact what we did do. But the bottom line is, because it was dark, it became dark so very quickly, and although there was a full moon and that kind of stuff, there was no moonlight. It was absolutely black. It turned black really quickly we couldn't even see each other. And so it was very slow progress that we made. We knew that we couldn't leave the track because it was night time, and we knew that there was a lot of caves in the area, and sometimes the limestone would break and you could fall down a pit and all of that kind of stuff. So there was a lot of rumours that, there was quite a few skeletons probably out in that forest. But whatever, it was like we were holding hands a lot of the way, even though we couldn't see each other. So you can imagine what that was like. And then at different points along the way, because I wasn't sure where I was, I had a cigarette lighter with me because obviously I smoke. So I would give it a flick, and then I'd be able to try and rebalance, and then we would keep walking. Now, I should point out, during this walk, my daughter was whinging like nobody's business because she should have known, the car would break down, it was all my fault. I shouldn't have left the lights on, and so, lots of tears and hysteria as we're walking along, and to compound problems, because she wasn't listening to me, she kept veering off the path because she didn't want to hold my hand the whole way. No, stop holding my hand, I'm a teenager. So then I would hear a twig crack, and then I'd hear her go, "Oh!" And I'd be like, "Did you just get hit by a stick?" And she'd be like, "Yeah, but that one hit me in the face." And I'm like, God, well, maybe that's a message. Stop whinging, but obviously holding it all together. So when we talk about the intuition, I was just really doing this reflecting as I was walking along. I thought, this must be what it's like for the guides with us. I'm trying to encourage my daughter to stay on the path and not deviate. And whenever I would speak to her, but every now and again, well, in fact, actually, every time she stepped on a stick and it hit her in the face, I would be saying to her, "Are you not looking where you're going?" Because, you couldn't look where you were going anyway, but you could kind of feel through your feet when you were going off the path, because the surface would become more uneven. And she was like, "Well, I was, but then I started looking at the stars, because every now and again you see a star peep out from behind the clouds." I'm like, "Okay, you need to keep your focus on where we're at right now and what's directly in front of us. You can stop and look at the stars later if you like." All of this kind of stuff. And anyway, suffice to say, when the intuition kicked in was actually because I knew on that journey as we were walking that path that there was going to be a fork in the road. This is literal, this is true story. It sounds like a set of tarot cards, but it's the truth, okay? So I knew we were coming to a fork in the road, and I was aware that if I took one of the forks, it was going to take us much longer to get to the bitumen than if I took the other fork. But I couldn't really remember which fork we needed to take. Was it the right one or the left one? Because by this stage, I knew it was really late, and that the two children at home, I was starting to worry about them, and that they would be starving and frightened because, I never went out and left them. And this is before mobile phones. I didn't have a mobile phone anyway. So long story short, we finally got to a place. Daughter's whinging is escalating and just about peaking. And I've said to her, "Just stop a moment. I just want to rebalance and try and figure out where we're at, right? Because I don't know where we are at the moment on this journey." So I've pulled out my lighter again. I've realised, yep, I'm at the fork. And then I said to her, "We're at the fork in the road." And I said, "I'm just trying to work out which one's the quickest way." And my daughter started to get really antsy at me, and she's going, "It's the right way. You've got to take the right fork." And I'm like, "No, I don't think so." And she's like, "Yes." And she was really fixed, very high pressure, very much, "We've got to turn right. You need to listen to me, Mum. You never ever listen to me. You need to listen to me, Mum." Goodness me, I wonder if she realises this in this day and age, if she ever thinks about this story. But anyway, I've turned around and stood my ground with her. In the past, I probably would have caved because, she was just so fixated on it, and let her learn the hard way. And then we could both turn around and go afterwards, "Well, we should have taken the left fork." This particular night, I didn't have the patience for it, obviously. We'd actually been walking, to be honest. By the time we got home, it had taken us 4 hours to walk about 8 kilometres. Yeah, it was a long walk. Anyway, I have dug my toes, and I just turned around and said to her, "No, we're going left. We're taking the left fork." And she was like, "No, well, you can go left." I said, "I'll go left. I'll meet you at the bitumen then." And so I've taken off. And with that, she's started behind me. I said, "Oh, you're not going to take the right fork?" She said, "I'm not going anywhere on my own. I'm following you." But she's grumbled all the way. Well, within about 2 minutes, we've hit the bitumen is where I'm going. So I followed my intuition then, and I was not worried about what her opinion was. All the pressure that she was going to apply to me, I knew I had to take the left road, the left fork, whether she agreed with it or not. That was what we were going to do. So I guess within that scenario, I can say that there is a relevance of that we have to be able to do what we feel is the right thing to do, regardless of other people's opinions. But the rest of it, the sense of identity or self-worth, I don't necessarily agree with that. Interested in your thoughts, of course. So the next part of this universal law refers to the questions, obviously, that I raised in my own scenario. Do we value and trust our own intuition, or do we value and transfer authority to the opinions of others? Okay, so that could read as, am I going to rely on my own intuition or just cave into my daughter when she's throwing a tanty? Obviously, for me, on that day, I decided no. I don't care if she throws the tantrum. She can throw as big a tantrum as she wants. I want out. I want to get home. I've got 2 other kids to worry about. So I think probably we all do along the way, and sometimes perhaps ignoring our intuition or not heeding it, that obviously becomes a choice. And maybe sometimes we choose to meet the other person on the middle ground, or maybe it's about compromise. I'm not sure. As far as, does our intuition become more profound when we claim our own intuition as part of our sacred identity? I would say I think it does, actually. Once we become aware, fully aware, then it definitely becomes more profound. I don't know that I would call it a sacred identity, but I would certainly say that the experiences are sacred. And I can also say that particular journey has become etched on my brain, that walking that path to the fork in the road. It just, in many ways, it taught me what life is about as a bigger picture, going outside the small picture of we're all walking along, doing our daily tasks, and we all have to make decisions and all the rest of it. Actually, I think the other key lesson I got out of that, and I might share this with you, was there was no wrong fork, and how many times do we hear this, especially if you go for readings? There is no wrong fork. And that was the same for that journey that night. The only difference was, if I took the left fork, I would be out on the road, as I was, within about 2 or 5 minutes walking. And if I'd taken the right-hand fork, it probably would have added another 15, 20 minutes onto the journey. So it was, a very profound life experience for me to have that walk in the forest. In the evening, in the black, I probably should put some images up on this slide. I might do that. Or on this video, just for a laugh, so you can have a laugh at it. Anyway, once again, please feel free to make your comments. Let me know what you think about what this law says about intuition and the opinions of others. I think people can still have intuition and still want to please people. I think that it can compromise the messages, though. And I think, as somebody that has done readings and that kind of stuff, this is what I've tried to say to people. If I know you too well, I want the best for you. So this is one of the reasons why I say don't tell me too much if I give you a reading, because it may sway my capacity to rely on my own intuition and get the guided messages through, because I want happy outcomes for everybody, because that's what we want. But I have to give an honest reading. We have to be honest about the information that comes through. Actually, that's another tidbit here for you, is once I did start developing my psychic gifts, I never fluffed anything for people. If I couldn't see the full picture, I would just tell people what I saw, and it was up to them. Now, I will do a video at some point in the future to help people discern whether or not a reader is fluffing it for them, and whether or not they're genuine or not. So that'll be on the radar. Okay, I'm going to leave you guys with this and wait for you to get back to me. Take care. Have a wonderful, wonderful day. Bye-bye for now. So as always, there's pause for reflection after I do a video and I contemplate. Some of these laws stay with me after the fact, and this is one of them because of the fact that it was like, well, with obviously the previous queries that I've raised. And I think actually in hindsight that it's probably the wording and the way the paragraph is outlined that becomes confusing, because I felt upon reflection that I could see the truth of it, but not in the way it's been described in the paragraph. Because I recall now, many people are aware, because I put it on my website, that I have had psychic gifts throughout the entirety of my life, but I also denied and repressed them a lot because from a family perspective they weren't acceptable. And in fact my father had extracted a promise from me when I was 11 years old that I wouldn't explore this avenue. He had fears. He had observed his mother doing some work and that kind of thing, so he was not comfortable with it. And also, because of me being raised a Catholic, it was not acceptable within the family unit to talk about these gifts. So when we talk about willingness to set aside other people's views and opinions, I do believe that is correct now in hindsight, but it doesn't have to be a shedding off and a lack of care and, the intensity perhaps of that is applied within the content of how this law is described. And I'll give you a scenario, because before I had decided to embrace my gifts, there was a pathway that was involved. And one of them was I had the death of an auntie who I obviously loved and had close emotional ties. I was there round about the time of her dying. And after she passed away, about 6 months after she'd passed, I had an afternoon nap. I did one of those nana naps when you've got children and just sit in front of the TV, watch the TV, kids, mum's just going for a sleep. And I dozed, and this is the perfect state for spirit to contact us. And while I was dozing, I kind of had a vision that my uncle, not her husband, another uncle, that he was going to be diagnosed with cancer, which actually was true. He didn't die from it. But I got this vision, if you like, in my dreams, and I woke up with this overwhelming sensation and urge that I couldn't resist, where I needed to call him. It was this pressing thing. Call him now and tell him that you love him, because he actually was important to me. When I was about 18 or 19, I was quite close to him. Phone him now, let him know that you love him, because once they get cancer, everybody phones up and says they love them. Don't wait for it to get to that. Tell him before he gets sick, right? But the whole thing was, what was really eating me out, and I did make the phone call, it didn't go well, just so you know. I didn't phone up and say, oh, by the way, I've had a dream, he's going to have cancer and he might die. I phoned up and it was really bad. I didn't get to speak to him actually, but this is how it kind of rolled up until I decided to discard the pressures of family. The universe stepped in anyway and created the situation for a separation. So I'll give you the background as quickly as I can. Anyway, I've called up my uncle and my auntie has answered the phone, and I was so uncomfortable because we're not the type of family where you would just call up and say, hey, I love you. So, which is what I wanted to do. So it was kind of like I was going through this whole cognitive dissonance experience, the mind saying, no, they'll think you're nuts. The other part saying, I've got to do it. I've got to do it now. I've got to do it now. Anyway, my auntie's answered the phone and she's like, are you all right? And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm fine. Is he there? And she's like, no, she actually didn't answer the question. I'm not sure what she thought was going on, but I do know she did think that I was completely insane, because I ended up bursting into tears on the phone with her because I was so uncomfortable. And I wasn't saying, look, he's going to die. I was just like, I want to tell him that I love him. Can you please let him know that I love him? I don't know if she did, but within about 6 weeks of that dream, he got his diagnosis. And yes, he did survive it. So then moving on, that probably would have happened, I don't know, maybe about 1996 or 1997. By year 2000, I had a complete break with the whole family, because there'd been a family breakdown, family of origin. And this was when I found myself living in the remote areas as a single mother with my children. And it was kind of like, most people that know my background know that included, well, the reason for the breakdown was actually family violence. But so not only was it there the freedom after the split and liberation from this oppressive marriage, but there also became this realization as I became a single independent woman with 3 children that I could be whoever I wanted to be. I didn't need to worry about what my parents thought of me. I didn't need to live by their restrictions. I was no longer inhibited by an ex-husband that attempted to control the way I expressed myself, and I was free to pursue those things that my heart called to. So I would say, yeah, look, I can actually see a truth to this law of intuition now from a reflective process on this. And I just wanted to share that with you before I head off for the day. Take care, my friends. Have a beautiful day. Love yous. Take care. Bye-bye.